Hey guys, welcome to Guardiola United. Welcome to another video, and today it's gonna be another kind of different video. It's gonna look at the past, and more specifically, look at the treble-winning seasons for Barcelona. And it's a topic that I've wanted to talk for a long time because I think that this is something that, especially newcomers to the game, to sport, might not know, like a lie that is told very often, and that it sounds in theory it sounds very true, but when you think about it and when you have watched football for a couple seasons, you understand that that's not the case. Especially if you play football, you realize that this is not the case. And it's about having the fact that the more stars you have in the squad, the better. All the great players can play all together. It's the coach. Then it's up to the coach to fit them into the team. And I'm saying this mainly because Neymar is a player that it's rumored to come to Barcelona, and how would that fit in? Because you would have far too many players to be able to fit them into the squad. Like, I'm gonna be looking specifically at our two treble-winning seasons. That is what we should is the model that we should be looking at, and it exactly highlights what I mean by we don't need that many players in our squad, because it's more important to have a decent amount of players, and good enough players that are gonna be able to perform, that everyone is gonna be happy with the minutes that they're gonna have throughout the season. That is the most important thing to keep in the squad, to keep a healthy squad, a happy squad. Basically, this might sound a little bit childish, but a happy squad is a healthy squad. So let's get started with the 2008-2009 season, Pep Guardiola's first season at Barcelona. And this is what his lineup looked like. He had Victor Valdés in net, and he had Pinto as the backup goalkeeper. Valdés was the undisputed first-team goalkeeper, and Pinto was the second goalkeeper. He played a few games of the season, and both of those goalkeepers were happy with their minutes that they got. At center backs, you had Martín Cáceres, you had Gabriel Milito, Rafael Márquez, Carles Puyol, and Gerard Piqué. Who were the starters? Piqué and Puyol pretty much the whole season, with Rafa Márquez playing also a pretty decent amount of minutes, and Martín Cáceres and Gabriel Milito played during the season but did have injury concerns, and that's why we had that amount of center backs. Also, Rafa Márquez also had injuries during that season, and that's why it mainly was Piqué and Puyol during the whole season. So all these players were happy with their minutes. At right back, incoming, we had Dani Alves, and we also had Martín Cáceres to cover at right back. And this is the third point to touch during during the video. It's important to have players that can play in multiple positions, especially if they're not going to be starter players that can plug a gap here, plug a gap there. And so you have less players in the squad, and that player can play more minutes because he's going to have more positions to play in. Dani Alves played pretty much the whole season, and Martín Cáceres was able to put in a shift if need be. At left back, you had Eric Abidal, who was the undisputed left back yet again, and you had Silvinho, who had pretty good seasons at Barcelona, but his career was ending for Barcelona, and he took being a backup to Eric Abidal pretty well. He still played a bunch of minutes, and he was happy with the minutes that he got. In central midfield, we got a midfield of Xavi, Iniesta, and Busquets that season. But let's remember that we also had Yaya Touré, we had Seydou Keita, and we had Alexander Kleb. Alexander Kleb didn't feature as many games that season because he couldn't maintain himself fit. He wasn't listening that much to Guardiola. There was controversy in the dressing room, and that's why he didn't feature as much. So in theory, we had 5 players to count in for central midfield. Sergio Busquets was promoted that season from the 4th division of Spanish football to the first team to compete with Yaya Touré for one spot. But remember that Sergio Busquets was gonna take Yaya Touré was gonna play a lot of minutes, but Sergio Busquets was gonna take the backup for that season fairly well because he was 19 years old when he broke into the team. You had Xavi and Iniesta, and also you had Seydou Keita. So you had 5 central midfielders for 3 positions, and they all played a bunch of minutes. Even, I believe, Yaya Touré for a moment of the season featured at center back, which was the weirdest thing. I believe he played the Champions League final at center back, if I'm not mistaken. But you had all these players played a lot of minutes, and Alexander Kleb didn't play more minutes because he wasn't as integrated to the squad as he should have been. And in the forward line, you had a front three that this is a memorable front three for a lot of us, and that is Messi, Eto'o, and Henry. Messi, Eto'o, and Henry was our forward line. They were the undisputed forwards, especially that 6-2 against Real Madrid. That season was absolutely fantastic. And you had Edwin Guardiola to be the backup for them. You also had an incoming Bojan. You had an incoming Pedro, but those 2 players didn't feature as much that season as they were really young. But these proves to you had 3 players of an amazing quality, and then Guardiola, who was good enough to play a substitute role for all of those positions. Then you had Bojan and Pedro, who were pretty decent in their own right, and when they were called upon, they featured pretty well. So that was the 2008-2009 season. That was a treble-winning season, the first season under Pep Guardiola. He decided to do this. That was the only season that he had a treble season, and as you can see, it was made out of 20 players. There were other players like Bojan, I think Victor Sanchez, but we're not going to count those players because those players were from La Masia and they didn't really feature a role. One was a 3rd choice goalkeeper, and the other one was Victor Sanchez. He's horrendous, but he still was given a chance. So in the 2014-15 season, the first season for Luis Enrique, you also have a very similar squad in the case that you have 20 players, and you have the likes of Marc-André ter Stegen playing the Champions League and the Copa del Rey games, and you had Claudio Bravo playing the La Liga games. Those 2 players, in theory, for that first season were happy with their minutes. In the second season, not so much, but we're going to talk about that later. The thing is that in the first season, those 2 players were happy with the minutes that they were given. At right back, you had Dani Alves performing at an amazing level, and then you had Martin Montoya, came in from the youth academy in 2011 and performed fairly well for Barcelona. It wasn't he didn't make a fuss whenever he didn't play, and we had a pretty balanced squad during that season. Jordi Alba on the other side, again performed really well. Adriano came in and gave a shift. He played very few limited minutes, but he was happy with those minutes that he got. He was also able to figure at right back if needed be. At center backs, we have Gerard Piqué and Javier Mascherano as the starters, and as the backups we had Marc Bartra from the youth academy, and we had Jeremy Mathieu that we signed that season from Valencia, and he came in to be a reserve player, and he took that whenever he was called upon, played fairly well, also featured left backs a few times, and we had a pretty balanced squad that season. I'm not going to count Thomas Vermaelen because he was injured for pretty much the whole season. I believe he only featured once that season, so I'm not going to count him in during the 2014-2015 season. In our midfield, we have Andrés Iniesta, Sergio Busquets, and Ivan Rakitic as our first 3 players, with Xavi coming in to put in a shift. You had also Rafinha, you had Sergio Roberto, and that was it. That was your 6 midfielders. They all played the minutes that they wanted to play, or at least the minutes that they were happy to play, and they all gave a good shift. Xavi one that couldn't feature as much because of he was coming of an age and he just couldn't play that many games of the season, especially from the start. But even Rakitic, Iniesta, and Busquets worked perfectly fine. Rafinha and Sergio Roberto also gave a good shift and performed very well that season. And the forward line was the classic, the first season of the MSN, probably the best season that we've gotten of the MSN Messi, Suarez, and Neymar. Fantastic performances from all of them during that season. Messi breaking ankles, breaking Jerome Boateng, scoring the goal one of the goals of the century against Bilbao in the final of the Copa del Rey. Just amazing goals, amazing performances from Suarez. Neymar had a fantastic performance, as I believe he scored in every game from the quarterfinals onwards. He scored pretty much in every game, I'm sure about it. And as a backup, you had Pedro. Pedro came in play from the left, came in play from the right. They all performed a lot well in that season. And then you had the likes of Munir and Sandro Ramirez, who didn't belong to the first team squad, but they play a lot of games during the Copa del Rey and gave a good shift whenever called upon. Two players that, again, Luis Enrique was only able to give those two players a chance to feature in the squad because he had the space, because he had only 20 players and only had 4 players in attack. So that means that whenever he needed someone to perform, to just do well, to just do the job that you're asked, Munir and Sandro were more than good enough for that reason. And now, coming to the upcoming 2019-2020 season, it's time to look at Barcelona and what it's going to happen to the team. Like what the current state of the team is and what I believe needs to happen for us to have a similar squad in depth compared to the other 2 seasons just looked at. So we have Marc-André ter Stegen in net. We have the likes of Neto as the backup. We have Semedo, supposed to be the starter, with the likes of Sergio Roberto as the backup right back. You have Jordi Alba at left back. You have Piqué, Lenglet, Umtiti, and Todibo as center backs. You have a midfield of Sergio Busquets, of Artur, of De Jong, of Rakitic, of Rafinha. You have Aleñá, Frenkie De Jong, and Arturo Vidal. You have a total of 7 players in central midfield, and I'm not even counting Riqui Puig, who should be able to feature in the first team squad this season. And in the forward line, we have Lionel Messi, we have Suarez, we have Dembélé, we have Griezmann, we have Malcolm, and we have Coutinho. We have 6 players in the forward line. Now, I see a clear problem in 2 parts of the pitch right now, in central midfield and in the forward line. We have 7 players who, if we count Riqui Puig, it's 8 players in central midfield, and in the forward line we have 6 players. So in my opinion, that's a lot. That's too many in the forward line, and there's like about 2 or 3 too many in central midfield. So to fix this, in my opinion, you let go of Rafinha, you let go of Malcolm, you let go of Rakitic, and you let go of Coutinho. You're getting rid of 4 players, and your midfield starts to look like Sergio Busquets and Frenkie de Jong and Arthur to start in your midfield, and you have Vidal as the first, that first man to come into the midfield every single game, and then you give opportunities to Aleñá and Riqui Puig. Those players get to feature a lot of minutes, and Sergio Roberto can help you to cover if you need a more energetic midfield in a determined moment of the games. And in the forward line, you letting go of Malcolm and Coutinho allows for Ousmane Dembele, Messi, Suarez, and Griezmann to perform a lot of minutes, very similar to the MSN. And then you have Pedro. It will be a very similar performance in my opinion. And then if ever someone gets injured, or if ever someone you need a backup for, Juan Miranda can take that backup for Jordi Alba, or if you send Chiqui Palacios, he can perfectly take that backup for Jordi Alba for a few games of the season. Then you have in the forward line Abel Ruiz, Carles Perez, Aleñá can play in either wing. So you have players, you have options to put in a shift and be able to still keep a high level. Everyone will be happy with their minutes, and everyone will be performing at the level that they can. So what I'm trying to say here is that you have a team that you're giving the youngsters opportunities. Your first team players are happy with the minutes that they're playing. They're all going to play pretty much over 3,000 minutes a season, or at least 2,500 minutes. Maybe the youth players are going to play like 2,000 minutes, but they're going to be happy with that. And that keeps Everyone's progressing nicely. We are going to compete at a very high level, and it's going to be a happy squad. It's going to be a healthy squad. So with all this said and done, leave me your opinions in the comment section below. Do you think that what I'm saying is right? Do you think that we should add more players? Do you think that we should not have as many players in squad? Leave me your opinions in the comment section below. Comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, Grandmas.